Segments are a type of line or path or shape that's going to have a combination of, some parts of it are straight and some parts of the line is curving, right? And so being able to control the path you're making in Illustrator to sometimes have straight segments and sometimes have curving segments all along a continuous path is a big part of using the pen tool. So let's talk about how to do something like that. So P for pen tool, and then click, just clicking makes straight segments. If I start to click and drag, I'm making curved segments. So I can, pretty easily go along and sometimes click and drag and start to make, a mixed segment. But something like this you have to do a little bit more, work to get this to go from being straight to curving and then curving back to straight, for example. So here, if I click, the next line that it makes would be a straight line, but, and I just did Control or Command Z there. I did, don't want to do what I just did, so undo, undo. What I'm going to do, still using the pen tool, is just hover over this anchor point and pull out a control handle. And then the next line I make, since there's a control handle, it will be a curve. So I'm going to click here, I'm going to pull, click and drag. I'm pulling out some really long control handles in this case. And you can see, okay, the next line I make is going to go up in the direction of my control handle, and then it's going to slope down toward whatever the next anchor point I make would be. But here what I want to do is, instead of making a curve after this, I want it to go back to being a straight line. So what I need to do is, in this case, I'm pressing Control or Command, and I'm toggling, while still using the pen tool, to my direct selection tool. That allows me to grab this control handle on just the one side. First of all, I can use that to shorten or lengthen the handle, so maybe it's not quite as extreme and pulling that line so far up. But I can also drag it right into the anchor point and get rid of it altogether. And then, since there's not a control handle coming out of this side of the anchor point anymore, the next line I make is going to be a straight again. So this example, in this case, I'm starting by clicking and dragging. I want to start with a curve. And then what I want to do is, I don't want this to be a curve anymore. So I'm going to toggle to direct selection tool by pressing Control or Command. Click, click, click. And then in this case, I want it to curve now instead of being a straight. So hover over the anchor point, pull out a control handle. And in this case, I need that control handle to go, in a slightly different direction than what I had there, so it doesn't curve like this. I want it to curve more like over here, so I'm going to pull it up a little higher, and then this will drop down and under that, and that'll look like I want. And then I can click and drag to finish that off on a curve, press Escape, back to Selection tool, and then I've got this as a path.